We were standing backstage at the manufacturing plant's town hall meeting. Pam, my HR director, was by my side, as was Ron, the plant manager. I had given dozens of speeches and presentations over the years, but this one was different. It was bare knuckles real, and we were about to dramatically impact some good people's lives. I was the CEO walking out to address the employees. We were closing their plant. One thing for sure, they deserve to hear that from me personally. Hi, I'm Phil Coerper, Managing Director of Ringling Business Solutions. In today's episode of the CEO's Field Manual, we'll walk through how closing a plant is one of the hardest things you'll do as an executive. I've been involved in many missteps when downsizing was needed. It's a brutal journey involving difficult trade-offs that impact your people. In this case, I thought the team got some things right that hopefully are instructive. Some background. When I was hired as CEO, we had 4 manufacturing plants in the U.S., with each located geographically to minimize shipping costs. The plant in the south was slated as our corporate hub and had excess capacity in floor space and machine usage. The facilities in the east and west were all balanced on volume and profitability. The plant in the northern Midwest was the outlier. It was efficient and profitable, but redundant in capacity and capability, and not positioned to take advantage of shipping costs, as customers now were more national than regional. Potentially consolidating this facility's output into the southern plant was discussed during my interviews as CEO. That's the business equation. The business details and personal side gets much more challenging. Even though evaluating plant consolidation was on my list, it was not a priority my first year. My focus was establishing my team and driving growth and profitability across the product lines. These are common initial goals for a new CEO. For details on this, see the previous episode called "The Most Important Thing a New CEO Must Do Before Anything Else." Back to the story. Right out of the gate, I personally visit all 4 manufacturing plants for planning and to set expectations. The visit to the upper Midwest plant was interesting. Ron, the plant manager, was relatively young, but very smart and competent. His team was small but efficient and focused. The plant was clean and very well run. The employees on the plant floor were open and welcoming. It was an informative tour with stops at each production area to hear directly from the workers. What were they doing? What improvements were they driving? At one point, Ron asked me privately, "What's the plan for the future of this plant?" He was no dummy. He could see the attraction to consolidating to the southern facility. As a matter of fact, all the employees could. A lesson here is that people are smart, especially when it comes to job security issues. We held our first town hall, and Tony, a machine operator, asked, "Are you going to close this plant and move production down south?" I gave Tony basically the same answer I had given Ron. "It's too soon for me to know. I will tell you this, though. This is a well-run and very efficient facility. Continue to control what you can control. Make this the best damn plant we have, and make that decision as hard as possible if we come to that bridge." On the flight back home, Pam, my HR director, pressed me on my response. "Your non-answer may have made them more nervous rather than less," she said. "That's not the point," I said. "The point is I owe them the most open answers I can relay at that moment." "That was an amazing plant and a great group of people," I said. "I'm rooting for them even if they have a very hard mountain to climb. They already know they are in a tough spot. Us pretending they are not won't help anyone." My next visit to the plant was similar. Great efficiency progress, very open conversation with employees. Ron again asked me if they had a chance to survive. I said, "Ron, we both see the same information. It's going to be tough. But if I've learned anything in business, lean into your current reality until it changes. Today, this plant is still in the mix. Win today, win this week, and you're giving the folks here their best chance." Years later, Ron told me on a networking call that those words resonated with him for years to come. Win today, win this week, and the future has the best possible potential. Any successful athlete works hard on winning the present. The same applies to business. I found that at every facility, there are a few workers who will ask hard or obvious questions in a town hall or one-on-one. In this case, it was Sue, a production support worker, and Tony, who asked me about the plant's future in our first town hall. I'm at Sue's desk, and she says, "We don't have much of a chance here, Phil, do we?" I'm at Tony's production station, and he basically says the same thing. This got very tricky at this point. I now know these people personally, and we have developed trust. I can't lead them wrong, but also it's not done until it's done. I think this is one reason why executives avoid contact with employees, especially when there is a potential negative outcome on the horizon. I do get this. You can be in difficult situations, and you have limits on how much you can share at any given time. I did the best I could with the answers, basically a less exact version of what I told Ron. Both later told me they noticed the difference in tone, but still were hoping they'd make it. My first year and a half on the job was moving fast. We were rotating our business review meetings with our active board members to each facility. The Midwest plant was up, and we were there for a business review. This turned out to be a moment of truth as the PE team was there. Alan was the main active board member from the PE firm. Alan and I had now worked together for over a year and had developed a strong relationship. He was a no-nonsense executive who dealt in direct conversation and data-driven facts. This was now my fourth visit to the plant. I knew the team and the plant well, and Alan and I were walking the facility after hours. Alan, I said, looking at the numbers, the Midwest plant has continued to improve and become our most efficient facility. Ron and the employees were indeed controlling what they could. The problem was the overhead and delta on wages. We also had excess capacity overall. Have you completed the close analysis, he asked. I have, I said. The data is compelling. We can downsize and still have all the capacity we could need with much lower overhead costs. Can the southern facility be as efficient? They don't have to be, especially out of the gate. He said, it's a shame. These are great people and have a very well-run facility. Okay, bring this to our next board meeting. Where are you at with the planning? He asked. First up is the transition team, Alan. I can get started on that as soon as the board tentatively approves the move. I'll then come back with harder numbers on project costs and a final timeline. Agreed. As I'm getting ready to leave, Ron steps into the office I was using and asks, so where are we at, Phil? Ron and I now have a high level of trust. I said, Ron, we are now ready to cross the bridge on a decision. You're doing everything you possibly can here. Unfortunately, the numbers are compelling, and at the next board meeting, I'll be discussing a close. If they vote to move forward, I need you to lead the team. Are you up to that? I am, he said. Shit. Maybe I was hoping beyond hope. It's not over until it's over, Ron. Be prepared for both outcomes. At the board meeting, I presented the analysis and a draft plan to close the Midwest plant. This board was smart and could be aggressive in pushbacks. So, Phil, you can't grow fast enough to utilize our best plant? The chairman asked. Sounds like a give-up play to me. Could we not sell it? A board member added. Closing it and walking away just sounds wrong. Alan was already read in, and we had spent hours on these types of questions and scenarios. We probably spent the most time on the growth and capacity question. At issue, no matter how we ran the sales analysis, we are still much better off with 3 instead of 4 plants. And this was a specialty plant, and we were leasing the building, so there really wasn't a business there to sell. Plus, we needed the production equipment in any event. An observation here for you who are aspiring, arriving as a CEO, or are a board member. A good board challenges the CEO on everything. This is not a defect, it's a feature that your board is engaged and adding value. If you have easy board meetings, you likely do not have a great board. The vote was taken to close the plant pending final review of the closure plan. Ron flew down to the southern facility for a week of planning. The core team included him, Pam, the PM for the southern facility, our logistics manager, and 2 nominees from the Midwest plant to be added once we got to implementation. Timing was sketched out, and we then hit the decision on communication. This was about a 6-month execution plan, so we had a few months before warn notices would be required. Now, companies might choose to keep the decision confidential until they get close to that 60-day point, and there are good business reasons for this. You're still in production, and once a closed decision goes public, you'll likely lose most productivity and key employees. You also had to be ready to answer all the possible personnel questions when you announce a closure. Severance, employee placement, support, the lot. Saying we'll get back to you on these is a non-starter. So I'm weighing the pros and cons on early communication to the plant employees. It could be a mess if the employees just give up on us. But I had got to know this group. They had earned respect and deserved transparency. Let's get the transition plans firmed up and tell everyone ASAP, I said. We'll put in a stay-on bonus plan for key employees and follow our corporate guidelines for severance. But let's also plan on covering healthcare premiums past the severance period on this one to cover gaps in coverage as much as possible. That's not policy, Pam said. We'll be obligated for that in the future. Well, it is now, I said. A benefit of being a mid-market sized company. We could adjust policy when it made sense. We also agreed to post all new positions in the southern plant for employees up north to consider if they could relocate. And a limited relocation fund would be available. Ron stopped by my office on the way out. Phil, this is the highest stress I've ever had. But thanks for the more than fair plan for my team. I have no doubt we will come through all the way to the end. I just said, keep leading, Ron, and keep caring like you do. It's several weeks later at the facility. We first met with the relocation team, including the team members from the plant to inform them of the plan. We then came on stage for the town hall. I walked on stage and got right to it. You may remember from a past episode, don't beat around the bush communicating bad news. I'm sad to tell you that even with your best efforts, we are announcing the close of this plant. I put up a slide on the timeline. Pam and Ron went through the HR particulars. There were tears and certainly disappointment. I walked off the stage into the group of employees, and one of the most impactful things in my career happened. There wasn't anger or disdain, just a lot of sadness, and remarkably, some gratitude. Sue and Tony were standing together. Phil, this completely sucks, but you were here for us every step. You shot straight, you never gave us BS, and the exit packages were more than expected. We're hurting, but Ron and your support is appreciated. The team up north did an amazing job buttoning down the plant. They lead into production, so we had excess inventory during the down period. Tony brought a team to the southern plant to set up production and train the employees. Several of them, including Tony, moved south, which was a nice surprise. The job market in the northern area was pretty good, so those who wanted to find work for the most part did, but not always at the same wage level they had with us. Not easy for any of them. Ron was offered a position but did not want to relocate, and we stayed in contact for years to come. The takeaways here are numerous, but I think all center around how we carry ourselves and how we communicate with our employees and team. If we couldn't find a way to save the plant, the least we could do was to treat these good people with respect and care. Notifying the employees as early as possible was risky, though. If you don't have strong ties to the workforce, it can go sideways fast. I give Ron and his team a ton of credit here. He not only held the team together through the close, but they leaned into helping us get up and running down south. Amazing. The bottom line? There will be times when a layoff or facility closure is needed. The easy route is to distance yourself from those who may be impacted. In this case, though, the opposite approach got everyone through to the other side intact. Pam and I supported him, but Ron is the one who made sure everyone made it through. His leadership and integrity turned out to be the most impactful lesson of all. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the CEO's Field Manual. In our next episode, we'll review details on leveraging local politicians, governors, and Congress to help drive game-changing outcomes in your business. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Please subscribe, and we'll see you at a future video.